Greetings and welcome back to Haftarot, the weekly video cast in which we take a look at the upcoming week's Haftara, try to understand its basic message, and see how it is related to the Kriyat HaTorah that it follows. My name is Yitzchak Etshalom, and I'm delighted to be studying the Haftara of Parashat Ekev, which every year is always the second Shabbat after Tisha B'Av, and therefore is the second of the Shiva de Nechemta that we discussed last week. As I mentioned 2 weeks ago, the difficulty that we have in looking at the Haftarot for this season is that whereas through the year, starting with Bereshit, we always try to make a connection, understand what the theme of the Haftarah, how it connects to the theme of the Kriyat HaTorah that it's connected to. And with greater or lesser success, that's what we did up until a few weeks ago when we entered the period of the 3 weeks. The period of the Bein HaMetzarim, and the Haftarot there took on their own theme and didn't seem connected to Kriyat HaTorah. Indeed, it would be easy to say the same thing about last week's Haftarah, Nachamu, seeming to have nothing to do with Vayet Chanan. At the best, you have a little bit of alliteration. And here, the week of Ekev, we continue with Nechama. What does it have to do with it? The reality is that these Haftarot are very timely and very well associated with the Kriyat HaTorah. After all of these Kriyot are in the book of Devarim. Matter of fact, almost all of Devarim is during these weeks. We will only have one Shabbat, 2 Shabbatot, and that is Hazinu and the Shabbat beforehand, and Shabbat Shuvah after we finish the Shiva Nechemta during this season. And so the book of Devarim really is very much connected to Nechama, because the book of Devarim is the book about getting ready to enter Eretz Yisrael. It is the culmination of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And it is Moshe's farewell speech because he's not allowed to go in, but it is all about preparation. It begins with a short history lesson of their travels through the Midbar. It then goes through a recollection for the new generation of what happened at Har Sinai, and an explication of all the mitzvot based on the Aseret HaDibrot, filling that out. And then it's a brit that the people undergo to prepare themselves to go into the land. It also includes many mitzvot which only happen when they enter the land, that you will now find a place that God will choose, and that's where you will offer your korbanot. You're going to go to war, and here are the laws of war. You're going to anoint a king, and here are the rules of the king. All of these rules, which means when we hear Sefer Devarim, we should be filled with hope and anticipation and excitement, mixed, of course, with perhaps a little bit of dread, and certainly some bittersweet feeling about the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu can't join us, that it's his speech. And so therefore, when we read through Sefer Devarim, and every week we hear Nechama of return into the land, the two are very much wed together. Take a look at this passage from this week's Parashat. We hear two famous psukim within 3, Pasuk Chet and Pasuk Yod. The first one, Pasuk Chet, describes the land of Israel with the Shiva Minim, Eretz Chita U'Sorah, and of course Pasuk Yod is the mitzvah of Birkat HaMazon. But if you notice in this small section, the word Eretz, referring to the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, is mentioned 7 times. It is what we call a leitvort, or a key word for this section. It's about Eretz Yisrael. It's about coming to the land. And it's a beautiful and ennobling section, and so its association with the Nechamot of Yeshayahu that we read during these weeks is quite clear. The Haftara that we have in Parashat Ekev is one of the longer of the Haftarot of Nechama. Many of them are quite short, and it covers actually 3 chapters, meaning the end of chapter 49, all of chapter 50, which is not that long, and then beginning of chapter 51. And I just want to draw your attention to the beginning and to the end. At the beginning of the Haftara, Sion says, God has abandoned me, God has forgotten me. And the prophet's response is, could a woman forget her own baby, the one that was in her womb? Even though they might forget that, I will never forget you. There's a beautiful Midrash Chazal on this. I will forget the Egel, where they said Eila Elohecha Yisrael, but I will not forget your valiant stand at Har Sinai when you accepted the Torah. Anochi lo ashkachech. I will not forget the Anochi. And this beautiful Haftara of increased consolation. And when we get towards the end, we'll talk about the whole series and how they build up sequentially in consolation. It's gorgeous. But I want to show you the last pasuk. Ki nicham Adonai Tzion nicham kol choroteha. God has comforted Zion. Not will, has comforted Zion, has comforted all of her destroyed buildings. Vayasa midbara Eden has made her desert like Eden, like Gan Eden. Va'arvata kinyan Adonai. It's desert like garden of God. It's almost like a reversal of the destruction of stone. Sason v'simcha yimatze v'atodah v'kol zimra. There will be happiness and rejoicing found in that city, found in Sion, thankfulness and the song and the sound of singing. This is a nevuah, like many of the nevuot that we read last week and read this week, and we'll read over the course of the 5 weeks following. That thank God we have merited to see in our own generation, to see the land of Israel rebuilt, to see indeed, to hear kol sason, kol simcha, kol chatan, kol kala heard in Arei Yehuda and Chutzot Yerushalayim. And in Yirtzeh Hashem, we will merit to see continued growth of Nechama, of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as He comforts us and as we roll up our sleeves and continue to build. In Yirtzeh Hashem, we will meet next week, and we will continue our study of the Haftarot of Nechama. Shabbat Shalom.